Yes, we're ready to go.
All right. So as I said, the name of our company is TNC Transport Services, and it's owned by myself and my husband. And we started it January 2019. So it's been a little over a year that we've been running everything 100% on our own as a trucking company. Leaving from leased operator, we once were company drivers as well. So this is just the overview, just to give people who, I don't know how much anyone really knows about the trucking industry, and I would assume that we have different levels as far as industry levels would be concerned. So the trucking industry generates over $800 billion annually in revenue. And that's not just from a truck driver, that's from every perspective. So shippers, brokers, dispatchers, there are many different facets in the industry, but it's a very lucrative industry to get into. Trucks move more than 70% of all freight in America and employs millions of drivers, surpassing trains, boats, and air freight. And that's something that I really didn't pay attention to being a company driver, as to how much we really use trucks to generate or move freight across the US. Like, it's really the lifeline of our everyday essentials, from our food to things that we use normally in our house. Probably everything on my desk at some point came by a truck. So that just lets you know just how imperative that it is for trucks to be in our industry. We're not going anywhere. Very much essential. I think the pandemic really opened a lot of eyes to people to see just how much you need a truck driver. Even though they're not paid the most out of the industry, they're needed the most. Most owners don't have their CDLs. Most owners can't operate their truck. You know, they started a trucking company and they can't move the truck. They still would have to hire another body to do that job. And more than 40% of the jobs in the industry are held by minorities, outpacing the national jobs outpacing the national average of jobs overall held by minorities. So there are three main types of operations when it comes to owning a truck. The first one would be an owner operator, which is essentially you own the company and you drive the truck. It's normally a one woman or widow. And it's just, as you said, you're the owner and you're the operator. However, it's still run under what's considered your own authority. So a lot of times owner operators, they have the choice to as well be a leased operator, meaning that they can be leased onto a mega courier or a smaller courier, because there are smaller trucking companies that also lease on. However, it just depends on how involved you want to be. A leased operator is normally someone who owns the truck. However, they don't operate their own authority, meaning they don't have their own motor courier authority and DOT number. They didn't go through all of the paperwork, the licensing and insurance and all of those things on their own under their business name. They used a different business. For instance, one of the bigger ones would be JB Hunt. A lot of people are probably familiar with them. You would lease your truck onto them, so you would be using JB Hunt's MC and DOT number to get your work, but you own your truck. The third option would be a fleet owner. A fleet owner is considered 3 or more trucks, and it's 100% control. You take 100% of your profits. You control 100% of your day-to-days. I mean, you can as well hire dispatchers, fleet managers, directors of operations, so forth and so on. But it's pretty much 100% your responsibility as to what goes on with that company on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to take it back a step, because with lease operators, you also have the ability to, well, not the ability, but you pay into that mega courier. So if you're leased onto JB Hunt and you're taking probably 25, 30%. It just depends on the contract and how you negotiate things. They take a percentage of your revenue, whether it's weekly, whether it's daily, whether it's monthly, which I've never seen it be a monthly revenue take. It's normally weekly. So if your truck makes $7,000 a week, they'll get a 30% cut of that before any of your expenses are taken out. So that's something to consider. So my next question would be to everyone who's—
I'm sorry, what option was that last one?
Which option?
Yeah, was that one?
That would be the leased operator. If you lease on to another courier who runs their own authority, you would pay them a percentage for running under their authority.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? So in choosing what type of operation you want to run, I would say that it really depends on how involved you want to be with your business. How much time are you willing to commit to the growth and success of your trucking company? Your current responsibilities, are they flexible enough to allow you to commit 100% to where you want to run your own authority and have multiple units and be a fleet owner? Or are you looking for a more passive option to say, you know, I want to get in the industry, but I'm not ready to 100% do everything. So I kind of want the training wheel method. That's what I call being a leased operator. It's having training wheels on. You're still out there. You're still in the industry. You still have to incorporate your business. You still have to do certain things depending on the type of contract that you are able to negotiate with that courier that you're leasing onto. But it's a training wheel method. It gets you in the door and gets you the ability to learn certain things. And I would say that if that's the route that you choose to take, that you definitely want to learn while you're leased on. You don't want to just allow someone to run your truck and you not have anything to do with the day-to-day and don't really know what's going on, especially if you're thinking about one day running your full authority. You want to try to learn as you grow, but also have the ability to be flexible with it. Leasing onto mega couriers allow you fuel discounts. They allow you sometimes to use their trucks. It just depends. They allow you the ability to use their relationships with their shippers, the lanes that they may already have established. Some of them will allow you to pick your own freight, or some of them will do what's called forced dispatch, meaning that that's kind of like being a company driver though, honestly, where they tell you where to go, how long you stay out. And then there's the ability to choose where you go, how you go, and how long you stay out, or how long your driver stays out if you're not going to be the driver of that truck. So understanding your current commitment and the sacrifices that you're willing to make is really imperative to deciding what type of operation you want to be or how involved you want to be in the trucking industry. So some of the key players.
Hold on, Tay. We got a question.
Okay.
Unmute yourself, or you can write in the chat.
Sorry, guys. I was wondering, under the lease operator, I know we went past it. My son woke up. 30% is going to the person that you're under. And then is this one of the ones where 50% is going to the driver?
So it depends on how you negotiate with that courier. A lot of the mega couriers, I want to say their percentage is 30% of your revenue. But I hope that you wouldn't be paying your driver 50% of your weekly revenue. Some people pay their drivers what's considered cent per mile, meaning that they'll pay them 50 cents per mile, $1 per mile. It just depends on how you choose to set up your company. And others pay per revenue. So you'll pay the driver 10% of the weekly revenue, 15%, 20%. It just depends on where you stand with your company. Industry standard, I want to say, is around 15 to 20%. if you're going to do percentage based. As far as cents per mile, I've seen it as low as 50 cents per mile, and I've seen it as high as $1.25 per mile. So it really just depends on how you choose to set it up.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there ever a situation where you would combine both percent and mileage?
I've seen a lot of the mega carriers do it. For instance, my father now is working for a mega carrier and they're paying him percentage and per mile. But it's peak season right now, and the contract that they're on is a real hefty contract. So either way, the owner is still eating way more than the driver, but they have combined the two. But when you're combining the two, it's normally not that high. It may be something like 10 cents. So you're paying your driver 15% of what's called the line haul, and you're also giving them a cent per mile. So an additional 10 cents per mile, and they may run 500 miles in that night or that day.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
it doesn't equate to that much. It's kind of like an additional, let me see, 50 cents. I'm sorry. So that's an additional $50 if they were to run 500 miles in that day, and you're paying them 10 cents.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to put it in perspective, if I was to be a lease operator, would your company TNT be someone that I could be under, and
Yeah.
you would get 30% of the profits?
Yes, that would be a scenario, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the way I would say, as far as you trying to negotiate how much of a percentage you would want to or be willing to give to someone who allows you to lease on, find out what are they going to take care of. Are they going to give you fuel cards, or do you have to have your own fuel cards? Are they going to allow you to use their maintenance program if they have one, roadside assistance if they have one? Are they going to dispatch your drivers? It just depends. I mean, you don't want to give someone a huge percentage and they're not giving you that value add. Are they going to take care of your permits? Are they going to take care of any billing and you just sit back and collect your weekly or monthly check from your driver? Or are they going to be less hands-on and you still have to do these things, but they still want 30% of your revenue? So those are things that you would want to take into consideration when choosing who to lease onto and how much of that profit you're willing to split with that company. Any other questions? Okay. So some of the key players in the industry that I wanted to point out is, of course, the truckers, the brokers. And a broker is essentially a freight broker, which we also do as well. It's a different company. It's not the same as TNT Transport Services. It's TNT Logistics Solutions, but we also have a freight broker in division under myself and my husband. A broker is essentially the person who goes out and gets the freight from the shippers. They establish those relationships, they secure those lanes, they lock them down for a price, and then they give them to the truckers. Whether it be a phone call to say, hey, I have this lane going from Maryland to Pennsylvania, it's paying this, the load is this, the weight is that, do you want it? Or putting the load up on the actual load board. A dispatcher is also a key player in the industry. Some people don't really care for dispatchers, but it just depends on the type of operation you choose to run. As I said, you can be as hands-on as you want or as hands-off as you want. And a dispatcher would be someone to help you with that. They would essentially have relationships with brokers, or they would sit on a load board all day pretty much for you to find your truck freight. And that is an everyday job. It's not, with it being peak season, it is abilities that you can book out for a week maybe or find contracts. But in the event that it's not peak season, a dispatcher would be the one to help you secure those lanes. If you're not someone who wants to sit on the load board or reach out to brokers or shippers directly, then a dispatcher would be a good plan for you. They also take different percentages of the load. So that's another person that you would have to pay if you are wanting to lease on to a company who does not provide dispatching services to you. So for instance, you're leased on to JB Hunt and you're giving them 30%, but they don't dispatch you. And you don't have the time with your current responsibilities to find your truck loads every day. So you want to hire a dispatcher. Industry standard for dispatching is between 5 and 10%. And that just depends on the dispatcher and how they choose to run their operation as to what they, the percentage that they charge for you. So essentially you can be giving someone 40% of your revenue if that's the route you choose to do leased. Another key player in the industry are the mega couriers. So these are the not so small businesses, the JB Hunts, the Amazons, the Landstar's, Mercers, the mega couriers that have thousands of trucks underneath their DOT. They're the ones who employ a lot of drivers. Some of them do lease operations, some of them don't. It's definitely to give a try if you wanted to lease onto a mega courier to piggyback off of some of their connects in the industry, because they are who they are. They're the mega couriers. So they'll have lanes, they'll have dedicated freight sometimes, and it may be beneficial for you to lease your truck onto one of them so that you don't have to have so much hands-on, or you just want to, as I said, sit back and get a check from it. Another key industry player is the shipper. And the shipper is essentially the first person to have the freight. So it could be Costco's, it could be Walmart, it could be a furniture company, it could be Amazon is also a shipper as well. So they kind of have a double role in the industry. And it can be as big as you want it to be, as far as Walmart, Costco, CVS, Safeway, Kroger, Giant. And then it can be as small as a little mom and pop store that still needs to have their goods delivered or shipped. So the shippers can be anywhere. If you're going to try to get those connections on your own, you definitely want to look at any type of shipper. Don't just think of the bigger ones, because honestly, the bigger ones, they normally go with the bigger brokers. So the mom and pops are more friendly. They're more easier to get to. They're more easier to find the numbers to find the addresses to visit their stores and see what their shipping needs are, to see how you can try to secure some type of contract for your truck. A consignee is just a receiver. It's the person that's receiving the goods on the other end. So could be a shipper as well. However, when it comes to your documents, it's leaving from the shipper and it's going to a consignee or a receiver. Another very big key player in the industry is the FMCSA. They are the police for the trucking industry. Them and DOT. So the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulates the trucking industry very heavy. They are the people who set forth all of the compliance, the regulations, the hours of service. They're the people that you would have to apply for your authority with if you choose to run your authority fully on your own. So to visit their website will be very beneficial to you, just to get yourself familiar with it, to understand some of the things that they need and that they want, and to learn the regulations. It's a lot of them. Some of them I still don't know, but they're definitely a very big key player in this industry because they regulate everything. The Department of Transportation is also a key player. They are another part of the police for the trucking industry. They conduct a lot of the off-site and on-site audits. So I'm quite sure some of you have seen weigh stations where you'll see the trucks going into a weigh station. That's DOT. They're checking to see if you're underweight. They're checking to see if you're overweight. They're checking to see if you have your shipping documents correct. They're checking to see if your truck is clean, if you have a broken windshield, if your truck is just falling apart, tire thread. It's a lot of things that they check for. Like, that would be just a whole nother session to explain the things that they look for when they pour trucks into the weigh station. So they're definitely a key player to be mindful of, to be cognizant of, to try to stay away from, and make sure that everything with your truck and your trucking company is on the up and up, because a fine from them could essentially put you out of business. It could be something as simple as your driver not knowing how to properly transfer their logs to the DOT officer that's on site, and you could probably face a $2,000 fine for that alone. They can put your truck out of service. So it's definitely beneficial to know, those rules and regulations and the things that they look for if you're going to put a truck on the road.
So, Tay, 2 questions.
Sure.
Ingrid asked, if you're leasing from someone or someone's leasing from you, if there's an accident, who holds the liability?
Good question. So the person who's DOT that you're using. So if I were to lease Ingrid's truck onto me and her truck was to get into an accident, I would take that hit to my CSA score because the truck is using my DOT, my MC.
Okay. And then second question, do all trucks have to go into the weigh station? Or, 'cause I know I've been seeing some just like drive right by them.
So it's something called a pre-pass that a lot of trucks can have in their cab, and it talks to DOT at the weigh station. So sometimes it'll allow you to bypass it if they're able to pull the information that they need from your pre-pass, or if you're essentially one of the mega couriers and they don't need to do an inspection on you. I don't know like the formula that they use, but they'll allow you to do a bypass. But any vehicle that's over 26,000 pounds, so 26,001 in gross vehicle weight, has to go through a weigh station at some point. It's just the ability of DOT telling you to pull in or telling you to keep forward if you have that pre-pass in the cab.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. So this slide I thought to include because I thought that it was interesting that the FMCSA reports that 85% of smaller trucking companies fail within their first year of business. Thank God that I'm past my first year, but it's still something that I think about when it comes to running my trucking company, running my operations. Having a plan, y'all, is so vital. Like, don't let people on social media tell you that you can just get a truck and throw it on the road and that's it. And you sit back and collect the check. It's not that simple. It can be if you're going to lease onto someone. It can be if you're going to lease onto someone. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, there's still that big, huge responsibility that it can't be. Having a plan, having the right driver, leasing onto the right company that's going to handle things as they should is very imperative. You don't want to lease onto someone like a small company and they're not running their company correctly. They're just all over the place with everything. They're not detailed. They're not organized. They're not staying on top of compliance. Even though those things will fall back on them, at the end of the day, the type of money that you have to invest into this industry to get in, you can lose it by you leasing onto the wrong person because, they only want 10% of my revenue weekly, so I'm willing to give that up. But on the back end, they're not keeping up with compliance. They're not making sure that my drivers have their medical certificate. They're not doing inspections on the vehicles. They're not making sure that the hours of service are being adhered to. Those are things that can make you lose money as well. Yeah, it'll make the company that you're leased onto suffer more because it affects their DOT, but it'll affect your pockets as well. So you definitely want to make sure that you're thinking about all of those measures when it comes to saying, yeah, I just want to lease onto someone and I'm going to just let them, take care of everything with running the truck. You want to make sure that you're going to be able to make your investment back and then some. So having that, that time, that blueprint to make sure that you can be successful is very imperative. So initial startup costs can vary. It can vary between a number of things. But prior to starting, you definitely want to sit down, and I know we have a lot of people that do spreadsheets in the group because they help with options and all that thing. So that's something that would be beneficial to your trucking company, to sit down and do a spreadsheet of your fixed cost, your variable costs. And your fixed costs would be things such as insurance, any softwares that you need, your local access, truck and trailer payments, your phone, your email, your domain registrations, and your annual registrations. Those are things that pretty much stay the same throughout the year, unless you're adding multiple units and you have to get another truck or you have to get another trailer. But those things pretty much stay the same. So you want to know the difference between your fixed cost and your variable cost. As far as variable costs, those things can change either week to week or month to month. And week to week will pretty much be your fuel costs. It costs more to fuel up in certain areas. Depending on the type of fuel discounts that you have, it depends on how much you'll save on fuel. So that's definitely something when you want to look into getting fuel cards, or making sure that your driver is aware that they're searching for the best fuel prices. I love my husband because he searches for the best fuel prices. He plans out his route every time he has to drop a load to make sure that he's saving us on fuel. No doubt about it. I'm talking about if it's a 10-cent difference, he's not going to go. So that makes a very big difference, as well as the year of your truck. So our truck now is a 2019. She gets amazing fuel mileage, whereas an older truck, say a 2015 or 14, is not going to get that good fuel mileage. The engine is different. The DEF system is different if it has a DEF system. So those are things that you definitely want to pay attention to, making sure that either you're going to instruct your driver to go where the fuel is low, or they have a sense of direction and knowledge to know not to fuel up in Pennsylvania or not to fuel up in New York. Let me go a little further into the South and fuel up here, as opposed to fueling up in a different state, because it does make a difference on what you'll spend then. And it also makes a difference on your IFTA fuel mileage when it's time to file your IFTA, which is quarterly. So this is the number that I feel everyone should plan for when it comes to getting in this industry. And I say that because it's a big business industry. Startup costs will definitely vary depending on a number of factors. Whether you're going to lease on, whether you're going to run your own authority, the state that you have to incorporate in, the vehicle that you choose, the trailer that you choose, the driver that you hire, your permits, your registrations, and insurance. When it comes to hiring a driver, that driver's driving record will really play a huge part in how much your insurance will be. When the insurance company writes your insurance policy, they're going to write it based on the driver that you give them. And if you want to do it based on yourself without you having a driver, it's definitely going to make your insurance payment higher. They want you to have skin in this game. They want you to have some type of knowledge. They want you to be a CDL driver. So that's definitely something to think about. Just to give you a roundabout, for us, both having our licenses for 11 years, never having any accidents or any type of points on our license or anything, in our state of Maryland, our insurance down payment was about $6,500. Yeah, I think it was about $6,500. And monthly, just for our one truck, we pay $1,800. So insurance is a major factor. I've seen people say that they've had insurance down payments of $10,000 to $12,000. So that's a real big expense when it comes to getting into the industry, and is really no way around it. Your down payment is going to be your down payment. If you live in a state that has, I guess, bad accident rates or what have you, or high accident rates, then you're probably going to have higher insurance, because I know people that are in North Carolina, South Carolina, and theirs was a little less than ours as far as their down payment. So all of those things play a part. Where your vehicle will be domiciled at plays a part. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. Your registration is a very high expense. You're looking at roughly $2,000, maybe $3,000 in registration fees just to get your base plates for your truck and trailer.
Can you say your down payment one more time?
The down payment, the amount that we had to pay,
Yes.
it was $6,500 in our state.
Okay.
Also the type of trailer that you choose, and I probably should have did a slide on this, but I didn't think to include it until just now. There are different types of trailers. So dry van, reefer, flat are the three main trailers. A dry van is essentially a big box, a 53-foot box that carries a little more than anything, I guess you can say. You can put a few things on a dry van. You can put general household goods, non-perishable foods. I've had loads where I put material operating equipment on a dry van because that's how my customer wanted his material shipped through Cali, as opposed to putting it on a flatbed and it being exposed to the elements of the weather. A reefer unit is essentially a refrigerator. It carries cold food. It has to be set at a specific temperature in order for your goods not to be, the word I'm looking for, not to be damaged in transport. I'm sorry, guys. So that would be a different type of unit. Reefers are normally more than dry vans. They also normally pay more than dry van freight. The next would be flatbed, which is a trailer that's essentially a long bed. It's open. That's normally how you move a lot of materials that can be exposed to the elements. A lot of pieces for material handling equipment, excavators, some of the types of things that we've had on it. Coils, plastic pipes. It's a lot of different things that you can put on a flatbed as well. Did someone have a question?
I would just add to it, you had steel, wood, and stuff like that on it.
Yes, steel, wood, exactly. Yeah, it's quite a few things that you can put on a flatbed, but those are like the three main types of trailers. So trying to decide on the type of trailer that you want would make a difference as well, as far as your startup costs. Knowing if you're going to purchase that trailer outright, are you going to lease that trailer? Are you going to rent that trailer? That has a big play on what your startup cost would be. And you also want to have a cushion for maintenance. You have to get that vehicle DOT inspected by the state that you live in before you can put it on the road. And DOT inspections can reveal many of things that you didn't plan for. It can reveal brakes needing to be done, brake chambers. Your tire thread will probably, be worn and it needs to be changed. Tires alone can run you $500-$600 for one tire. So those are all things that you want to have that cushion for. So if you possibly spend maybe $18,000 to $20,000 on your startup costs, you definitely want to try to have $10,000 to maybe $15,000 saved for a breakdown, especially if you're going to get a used vehicle of a certain year that you're not really sure what's going on with it. You just want to have that cushion because you don't want to put everything into it and you go to have an inspection and it's like another $10,000 worth of work. Or your driver gets out on the road and they have a blowout or something cracks, a gasket leaks, or anything can happen. And you don't have that money to fix it and it's within your first week. Like for us, within our first week of running our authority, we got hit. Like my husband was at a truck stop, sleep, and he got hit by another truck. And it took, 25 days for us to get back up and running? And it opened our eyes to a lot of things. You know, you get hit as a company driver, the company will take care of it. They'll put you in a new vehicle and you keep on moving. But when it's your company and you get hit, you still have to wait for the insurance company to fix your vehicle. And the damage was pretty extensive. So it took almost a month for them to fix our vehicle. Thank God that we did have money stashed away, you know, just to be able to take care of our bills for that month. Because had we not, we would have been up shit's creek.
Okay, so 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun said slingshots, ? Maybe you know what that means.
So a hot shot?
Slingshots.
I would consider them hot shots. It may be the same thing. So he's talking about a dually truck that possibly.
Yeah, that. Yeah, he said, yeah.
48 trailer. Yeah. I have not had any experience with a hot shot. So I really don't want to speak on it. I mean, I can answer certain questions, but it's not my area of expertise.
And then the second question was from Ingrid about how many lanes do you have to take in order to make your money back? I guess from the initial insurance or your initial startup.
How many lanes or how many runs? How many trips?
Probably trips.
It depends. I mean, what you make a week will really depend on the hustle of the driver, the type of truck, and the area. Knowing those hot zip codes to run in, to place your truck in. You don't just want to be all over the board, all over the U.S. and not really knowing. DAT has what's called a market map where it shows you the truck to lane ratio. So that would be definitely something to look at and try to study and understand so that you'll know where to place your truck. And the time of year as well. So right now it's peak season. You can run it up in peak season. That's from now until January of next year is really the best time. But you got to have a driver that's going to be willing to be out. If your driver needs to be home every week and the state that he's coming out of is not a hot state, you know, for freight, then you're going to have a problem. You're not going to make money. But if your driver is willing to go all across the U.S. for you or for his bag, then your bag will be big as well. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay. So the important things is how do you find your freight? You can get freight from your load boards, which would be the main DAT truck stop. 123 load board is one as well. I didn't really like it, but it is available. The main two would be DAT and truck stop. Those load boards give you freight for the entire U.S. and parts of Canada as well. If you're willing to go to Canada, which you would have to have specific permits to run your truck to Canada, but they are available. Your direct shipper relationships. So anyone who you know that can plug you into a direct shipper, maybe a traffic manager of some sort to help you try to secure lanes, that's also a way. Government contracting is another way for you to secure lanes. For instance, we are government contractors at TNT Transport Services. So right now we're looking to bid on a contract that's here in our state with Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, which will be local work for us. But I mean, it's the government. They buy everything. It's ridiculous on some of the things that they purchase. So that's also an avenue, but you do have to be authorized to do business with the government. That's a whole nother process to be set up in SAM and all of those other things to do business with your state and federal government. Now, a lot of the apps such as Uber Freight is really good. You don't have to talk to anyone with Uber Freight. You can just look at the load, see if that's something that you want to go, see if you want to accept the rate. get your rate con, and be on your way. The same with Convoy. JB Hunt has an app, and as well as Amazon. They also have their website, Amazon Relay, and they have an application as well where you can search for freight. The first 90 days are normally the hardest to get loads from certain brokers when your authority is new. They don't like to mess with you when they know that you don't have a CSA score, or they know that your authority is brand new, because they have to be able to trust you to take that freight. Sometimes you can be carrying a truckload and it can be worth $500,000 to $1 million. And if something was to happen to that freight, not only is the driver responsible, but it comes back on the broker and it'll mess them up with their shipper. So they don't really like to mess with certain trucking companies that are very new in your authority. It's not to say that it's impossible to get freight, but that's just definitely something to think about and pay attention to. We definitely had that issue with certain brokers pulling off the load board, not really wanting to trust us with their freight because we were new.
So when you get when you're trying to get a load, do you go to, I guess, this load board and you click accept and they'll respond back like, all right, cool, you got it?
So that's with Uber Freight, that's with Convoy, that's with JB Hunt and Amazon. Yes, you can do that process with them. However, when it comes to DAT and truck stop load boards, no. Most of the time you have to call their broker and talk to them and negotiate your rate.
Okay.
So if they have a load picking up from Richmond, Virginia, going to Salisbury, South Carolina, they may be offering you $700 on it. I'm just throwing things out there, guys, but they may be offering you $700 on that load. The load is probably 30,000 pounds. If you want to take it for $700, take it. You know, you don't want to haggle and you don't want to negotiate, go ahead and take it. They'll get your information. If you're set up with them, they'll send you a rate con and you'll have all the details that you need to go pick that load up. But if you don't want to take it for that $700, which I don't advise you to ever take it for whatever they have it on the board for, try to negotiate. Ask for more. Ask for $100 to $200 more on that load to see if you can get it from them. Start high and end low. If $700 is what you want, why not try for $950? Because they just may have it in the load to give it to you. So safety is very important. And that plays a lot on the type of driver that you hire. My criteria for hiring a driver is very strict because at the end of the day, they're operating these massive machines that are carrying massive tons of weight. I mean, the truck itself is of massive weight, and you want to make sure that they're safe so that your company can continue to have a good safety score. If your safety score is bad and brokers pull you up on the board and they can see that, which is public record through the FMCSA portal to see your safety score, how many times you've had inspections, so forth and so on, they'll try to either not give you the load or they'll try to give you less on the load. So that same load that we just spoke of going from Virginia to South Carolina, they may look and see your safety score and like, oh no, well, we're only going to offer you $500 because they may feel as though you're desperate to take the load because no one else is giving you loads with your safety score. So choosing the right driver, having those safety policies and procedures in place are all imperative to make sure that you're protecting your company, which is your asset. You're protecting your investment at the end of the day. When my husband and I do interviews and look for new drivers, I ask them questions to see how they handle certain situations. And if they're not going to answer it based on things that I know that I would do, especially if you have been in the game for a long time, it's like some things are common sense, but then some things are like, okay, you do have to think a little more on it. But if your answer to my question isn't in line with how I would handle that situation, you're not the driver for me. I need for you to be able to think the way that I would think, or think the way that my husband would think, so that I know that you're going to be safe out there and handle this whole transaction from picking up that load to transporting that load to dropping that load off with the utmost care and cautiousness that I would if I were behind that wheel. So making sure that you have a good driver is imperative. Making sure that you do pre-employment testing is imperative. It's actually mandatory by the FMCSA for you to do drug testing on your drivers. It's mandatory for you to reach out to their previous employers to get their safety performance history record, to get any records of them failing the drug test, so forth and so on. Like, all of those things are mandated for you to do to make sure that this driver hasn't had a DUI in the past. I want to say it's 5 years. For me, DUI, no, it's an automatic no. Points on your license, it's an automatic no for me. I don't care how long it was, but that's just how I am. Like, it's a no. I don't want to be bothered with it. I'm not a mega courier, so if I were to get sued, I can't take that hit and keep on trucking the way they do. So it's just certain things that I'm just not going to tolerate in my company. So that's definitely something that you want to, take heed to, as far as moving violations, DUIs, making sure that you're performing your DOT clearinghouse queries to see, has anything happened with that driver. Another precaution would be installing dash cams so that it's road facing for the driver. Well, it's road facing for you, that you can pull up that camera and see it at any time. It's not cab cam. So, you can have a cab cam, but I feel like that's a little bit intrusive. So having a road camera will allow you to see anything. Certain softwares will allow you to see if the driver is doing any hard braking, any hard stopping, any hard corner turns. What's another one? If they're disconnecting their EOD, the software will show you that. Like, I literally fussed at my husband a couple days ago. Like, what is going on? It said you're hard braking. It said you're going, and over the speed limit is another one. And he's looking at me like, no, that thing is lying. I was not that far over the speed limit, yada, yada, yada. But those are things that you want to take heed to and look at on a regular basis, as far as your driver is concerned, once you have hired them and prior to you hiring. You want to know what the previous employer had to say about them and those records, and any proof that, they were doing anything that was unsafe.
So whose responsibility is it to screen the drivers, the dispatcher or the owner operator?
It's yours. So if you're not going to lease on, it's your responsibility. If you are going to lease on to someone, again, that would be something that you all decide as to, are they going to screen the drivers? Are they going to hire the drivers? Which I think it would be better for you to allow the company to screen those drivers and do all of those things, so that nothing kind of falls back on you, and so that they're making sure that they're getting a driver that meets their standard. So this slide discusses the hours of service, or HOS. Drivers are required by the FMCSA to take a 30-minute rest break after 8 hours of on-duty status, which is considered driving. Drivers are only allowed to drive for 11 hours out of a 14-hour shift. Drivers must take a 10-hour off-duty rest break after their 14-hour shift in order for them to gain new hours. Electronic logging devices are required for DL drivers, and that's mandated by the FMCSA. Drivers must maintain 30 days of logs to know how to properly share logs. Drivers must maintain 30 days of their logs and know how to properly share their logs with the DOT officers. If they don't, that could be a fine for you, depending on the DOT officer and how they want to handle it, which 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you some type of citation or some type of fine if your driver does not know how to operate that EOD properly. You're supposed to train them and train them properly and make sure that they know how to use it, not just to sign on and sign out, but they need to know how to do it. They need to know how to do their vehicle vehicle inspection reports, and they need to know how to transfer it into DOT or inspection mode so that the officer can see their logs for a full 30 days. Drivers must also keep blank paper in the event that you malfunctions. So you can get paper logs at a lot of shops, and you use them anymore. I mean, they used to be a few years ago as to how drivers kept how they kept track of service, but now really use them. It's mandatory that it has to be electronic, but in the event that your EOD goes out, that it malfunctions, something happens, a cord gets broken, ripped, or whatever in the truck, you want to make sure that they have a set of blank paper logs and that they are recording and letting you know that, hey, my EOD went out, I can't see my hour, but I'm using the blank logs. Because if not, that's also a fine for the company as well. So drivers must take a 34-hour rest break after 7 consecutive days or 70 hours of driving, whichever comes first. Hours of service is very imperative. Very, 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 very. DOT is very, very strict on hours of service. So as the company owner, you want to make sure that you understand them, that your driver understands them, and that they adhere to them. Depending on the type of software that you use to track and monitor your asset and your driver, you can check to see their logs. You can check to see how many days they've been driving, how many hours, if they took their rest break. Normally your EOD will alert you and tell you, hey, you're out of hours. I mean, it honestly goes off the whole time you're driving, telling you, you know, you're getting close to your hours of service, you have to take a rest break. It can be annoying at times, but it's honestly to make sure that drivers aren't driving fatigued. So making sure that they take that 30 minutes after their 8 hours is imperative, because if not, that's a fine. That's probably points on the driver as well, but it's definitely a fine for the company. So compliance. Compliance is very important, guys. Within your first 12 months of having your own authority, you're going to have an audit, an on-site audit, where a DOT inspector will come to your place of business, whatever address that is that you put, which is supposed to be your principal place of where you keep all of your records, and conduct an audit of your record keeping. So a few of those things that you definitely want to make sure are on the up and up is your DQF, or your driver qualifications file. This is just the file that you keep on your driver. And this file contains, I believe there are 15 different things that you have to make sure that you have. So their driver's license, a copy of their motor vehicle record, their safety performance history record request, their drug tests from them having their pre-employment drug test, and random drug tests if they've been selected for one. Their social security card, their I-9, their medical certificate. So that's another thing. Your DOT medical certificate is very imperative for CDL drivers. You have to have one done every 2 years if you don't have any type of underlying health conditions. If you do have underlying health conditions, they normally only extend it for a year, to where you have to go back and see the doctor to make sure that they can clear you for safely driving that vehicle. I highly recommend using a type of software to keep up with your driver qualifications files. You can keep it paper. However, if you keep it paper, it has to be locked away. So for me, my office is in my home, and I keep several records just because I'm a little anal about everything. But as far as keeping myself and my husband's driver qualifications files, even though we are the owners, we are the drivers as well. So we do still have to have those as if we were hiring someone outside. So any of our drivers that we have that aren't ourselves, we have to keep their information locked up because it's considered their personal proprietary information. So it has to be locked away in a file cabinet. You can't just have it laying around in a a folder somewhere where anyone in your house can see it or have access to it, even though you are a home-based business technically. The drug consortium, you have to sign your company up for a drug consortium upon receiving your DOT and MC authority. Doing that will allow you to send your driver for pre-employment drug testing, put them in the pool for random drug testing, which you don't have any control over. It's mandated and regulated by a third party as to when that driver will have to have a random drug test. And anytime they have an accident, so a post-accident drug test is required as well. Even as the owners, we have to have drug testing. We have to be in the drug consortium for random drug testing. If we were to have an accident, even as the owners, we would have to go and take a drug test as well. Something new that the FMCSA has implemented, I want to say it began earlier this year, is the clearinghouse query, where your driver has to authorize you to do a query on them, which it sends out a request to any of their previous employers. And I want to say it's over 3 or 5 years. I'm not 100% sure. But it sends out that query to them for them to check to see basically some of the safety things that they were doing, or if they had any previous positive drug testing. And that's still very new, so I'm still trying to understand that one completely myself, but it's mandated and it's official, so it's definitely something to look into if you plan on operating your authority yourself. As well as the DOT medical certificate. I spoke a little bit about it in the driver qualifications file, but it's essentially your driver going to have a physical by a DOT authorized physician. A few years ago, it used to be where you can just go to your regular physician and have them say that, okay, you're authorized to drive, you're in good health. They've changed that where it's only physicians that are authorized by the FMCSA to give you a DOT physical and give you a certificate. It's a little card that the driver has to have on them at all times to show the date that they had the certificate done, if they're in good health, and the expiration date. It's normally 2 years, but as I said, if you have any type of underlying health conditions, it can be a year. So if you have high blood pressure, they can make it so that you have to come back every 6 months or every year to make sure that you're still in good health to drive. So something that I would highly suggest for anyone who wants to operate their own authority is to study the mega carriers and mirror your business as they do. Because we have been company drivers, we have been leased operators, and now fleet owners, I've found that paying attention to what the big guys did helped a whole lot. Paying attention to their policies and procedures. There are specific FMCSA driver applications that you have to use when hiring a driver. You can't just make your own application in a Word document or a Google Docs document and have your driver fill it out.
I just want to know that question. I said, how many of y'all ready to party with me this day tonight? If you ready to party with me this day, throw your hands in the air. Wait, let's go. If you talk to party with the captain, and I found this great.
So as I was saying, you can't just make up your own application and think that that suffices. You can't, when it comes to your driver qualifications files, you can't just make up those documents and think that they suffice. There are specific things that you have to ask for, specific things that your driver has, specific questions that your driver has to answer in order for those documents to suffice for the FMCSA and to suffice for your audit. You don't want the auditor to come out and you think that you have everything in place, and it could be something so simple as the type of application you used, or the type of form that you sent out to the previous employer that they feel as though is not up to FMCSA standards. And that could essentially put you out of business. You know, you don't want to have an out of business on your CSA score. So study the mega carriers and mirror your business as such. When we started, I took a lot of our old pamphlets that we had from our previous employers and tailored them to what we needed to do with our business. A lot of their policies and procedures, applications, so forth, that I didn't understand as a company driver as to why they ask these many questions on this many things, but it's a reason, because the FMCSA will on your back, and you want to cover your ass to make sure that you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. So in the event that your driver were to get into an accident and they ask you, well, what policies and procedures did you have in place? You know, what type of safety trainings did you conduct with them? And the driver can try to say, well, no, we didn't have this, but no, you did. It was conducted on this day, and I have your signature here, and this, that, and the third. So try to study those mega carriers and mirror your business as such if you want to try to operate your own authority. So this concludes my little presentation. As I said, I wouldn't be able to teach everything in trucking in a day. It literally would take a few sessions for me to get down to every little thing about it. But if anyone does have any questions, or you wanted to probably chat it up with me on the phone about anything, or email, that's my email address. You can definitely reach out, and I'll do my best to answer questions and help anyone that needs any further explanation of any prop of the trucking industry or getting into it, or share any other resources that I may have.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? While we're waiting on questions, can you go back to participants and make me the host again, please? Since I can't pull it from you. Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
So no questions from you all? All right, well, if there's no questions, hold on real quick. If there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And then after I stop the recording, I will open it up to questions about Monday.